Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So it's Friday night. I've been working on the new shop all week long, and I realized that I did not have a video to that was ready to upload for Saturday morning, which that's what I've been doing lately. I've been shooting videos throughout the week. Sometimes I'll have extra time during the week, and so I'll shoot a whole bunch of videos and then save them up and then kind of publish them, Saturday mornings. That way, it's just a more consistent, Anyway, so I realized I didn't have one yet, or was out of them for tomorrow, and I thought, well, I'll go ahead and, I wasn't quite at a point that I wanted to, do another shop update, but here we are. So I'll go ahead and go do a quick tour around the shop, show what's happened since the last video, and then I think I've got a sharpening video I'm going to go ahead and shoot. It'll be a nice quick one, but I think you guys will like it. So anyway, I don't even remember what I did on the last video. I think we had like some walls up, and I might have had the bench up, and I think I had the bathroom framed in and enclosed and everything, and I think that was about it. Today the big deal was the ceiling, so I ended up putting in a quarter of the ceiling of the whole place, and I'll show that to you here in a second. Actually, we'll just go ahead and go do we'll start at the front door and do a nice kind of surround, and you'll see what's different from the last video, I guess. So let's go back over here. First of all, we got Wyatt out with us tonight. Say hi, Wyatt. Wyatt's a good-looking dog. The only problem is that, it's not a problem that he's a black Labrador, but I find it really tough to, get pictures or video of his face. It's like he kind of just ends up blurring into the camera. But he's a good dog. He's been out here helping me an awful lot this last couple of weeks working. So anyway, I had shut down the shop for the night, but then I realized I was going to be out here for another hour, so I lit the stove again. And it's going pretty good. We'll start getting some heat in there pretty soon. Today I noticed that I was actually getting, it was staying an awful lot warmer in here finally. Throughout this entire process of insulating and putting the ceiling up and all that kind of stuff, it seems like, the shop's been getting a little bit warmer at a time. You can kind of sort of tell it a little bit, from day to day as, I keep adding insulation and walls and such. But today was kind of a big one. Of course, it was also, I think it was 36 degrees outside today, but the wind was howling, and so, but anyway, it seemed to stay pretty warm in here today. So anyways, we still got the wood stove. You can see the wall coverings behind the wood stove are that cement board. It's supposed to be, much tougher to catch on fire than, OSB or drywall or something like that. So it's got that, and then there's a piece of the, it's kind of like the same panel that I used for the ceiling. And that is, I've still got to mount it to that wall, but it's sitting up on some blocks to where it's sitting about an inch up off the ground. And then I've got a couple of metal spacers that are screwed into the studs, through the cement board. And that's holding that piece of metal about an inch away from the wall. And I'll have to shoot a video on that when we get caught up and everything, but that really, it works really amazing. So these wood stoves, they've got, a plaque on the back that tells you, how far away, your clearance is and everything. And, this one, I had plenty of space, so I went almost unprotected wall spacing, just to get it out a little bit, because I got the extra space, why not? And then I'm also protecting the wall with the heat shield and the cement board and everything, just because, just because that's the way I wanted to do it. So anyway, so we've got the so the wood stove's going nice. We've got the milling machine, the new bench. It was one of my reloading benches in the old place. My library isn't quite as big as what the old one was, so there wasn't enough room for two nice reloading benches in my library. So this one is coming out here, and it is going to be the new milling machine and drill press bench. And I may end up picking up, I mean, there's plenty of room there. I haven't mounted that milling machine yet. So I may end up picking up another, you know, small tabletop milling machine. And then of course the lathe. You guys remember the lathe bench from the old shop. And then the wood dryer made out of the old RV fridge. Toolbox for the lathe is back there. Some elk horns from, I think those are a fella I used to work with. Those are his first elk, the first elk he ever killed. And I'm supposed to make him like a half a dozen knives with the elk horn as the handle, and just haven't got to it yet. But and then we've got these nice LED lights from Menards. That's what these are going to be in, you know, for our kind of general, you know, lighting. I'm actually pretty pleased with them. I think they're 17 bucks a piece. They have pull cords. And you just plug them in. So this camera doesn't have a zoom, but that right up there is an outlet box. So that was part of today, was running the wire and the outlet boxes, and then getting the ceiling and the insulation and everything up. So, and then there's the Romex coming out that'll end up, you know, feeding the outlet. Right now I just have them plugged into a power strip that's plugged into the outlets, you know, that are behind the benches. You know, this one's kind of the same deal. So anyway, so just kind of to see, you know, how much light, how much light these lights are putting out, and whether I want, you know, I mean, I didn't know, I've never run these lights before, so I didn't know if, you know, 2 of them would be sufficient, or if I wanted to, you know, put 2 sets of 2, so like 1 here and 1 here and 1 here and 1 here. So this was kind of just you know, get them up there, but this is the way it'll work. And then you've got longer pull cords on, so you can turn them on and off. I was thinking about, you know, a regular, like a wall switch for these lights, but you know, a lot of times when you're doing heat treating in your shop, or you know, maybe you're doing some detail forging on something, or some heat cycling. The ability to really control your lighting is really big. And so I decided that, you know, the shop came with these lights. These ones up here. Now they're can lights, and they're LEDs, and there's 3 rows, so you got a row here, and a row there. And then they're on a, there are switches mounted on the wall for those. And so you can turn off, you know, this row and leave this one on, or turn that one off, that sort of deal. And so I think I'm going to leave that there for like general lighting, you know, like when my boy and I are working on a car or something like that. You know, and just kind of overall light. But these lights right here, my buddy Ed Fowler, he's got this type of setup here where he's got, you know, fluorescence all the way around his whole shop. And each one of them has got a pull cord. And that works really nice. So let's say that you're, you know, you're over there by the, let's say you're over there by the forge tree, and you're heat treating a knife in the forge, or if you wanted to do one with a, you know, an acetylene torch or something. With the kiln, it doesn't really matter so much because everything is digital, and you're, you know, you're going by the readouts on the kiln. But when you're heat treating by eye in a forge or with a torch, your perception of color is huge. I mean, it's everything. And being able to control your light is a big part of that also. So with being able to turn all these lights on or off individually, you know, I'll be able to turn on one over here, turn everything else in the whole shop off, and then that light will put out enough light for me to see, to be able to walk and move around the shop. and to be able to get the knife heated up and get it into the oil. But it won't really affect my perception of the colors, you know, as I'm heating the steel up. Let me turn the flue down on my... There we go. So anyway, so that's kind of the general idea of what these lights are being. The ceiling itself, this is, it's a metal panel. I picked it up from Menards. They are 3 foot wide and 12 foot long. They're kind of basically just steel siding. And then on the above it, you might be able to see up in there, I've got R30 bat insulation that's unfaced. So the walls, we've got, you remember I put in the styrofoam, 1.5 inch styrofoam. That's got an R value of 6. Then I put in rolled insulation that's a R19. So I should have, you know, an R25-ish on the walls and an R30-ish in the ceiling. So, you know, if I can't remember the last video, I think I was just talking about going with the styrofoam. And, you know, I think that probably would have worked. But, you know, I've worked with that styrofoam before, like when you're doing lost styrofoam casting. And I've shot a couple of videos on that where you take a piece of that styrofoam and you shape it into the shape of whatever it is that you want to duplicate in metal, you know, so brass or aluminum. I think the videos I shot were on doing slingshots. And then you put that thing in a bucket of sand, you pour sand around it, and then you make like a little funnel on the top with the sand. I mean, just dry sand. You don't have to actually make the green sand, you know. And then you pour the molten aluminum in there, and that aluminum flashes that styrofoam and turns it into a gas and fills the void in the sand so fast that the sand doesn't cave in. It's actually pretty cool. But that styrofoam, when it vaporizes, man, it puts off a stench that's really not very pleasant, and I highly doubt it's all that good for you. So, you know, in the event of a fire in a place like this, you know, having an entire ceiling made out of that styrofoam, you know, I just got to thinking about it, and I was like, you know, I just don't think I like that idea. This right here, you know, it being metal, you know, if you were in a really bad fire, I mean, the metal would be, you know, the paint would be burning off of it, and it'd be putting off fumes, and, you know, if it was that hot, it would probably be igniting the insulation on the other side of it, and that probably wouldn't be good for you and everything. But I wouldn't worry so much about this, like, dripping, you know, molten styrofoam on top of my head while I was trying to get out, like with that styrofoam would. So anyway, so this way is going to be, well, it is quite a bit more expensive, and it's quite a bit more time and labor to put it up and everything. But like I said, I mean, I'm hoping this is going to be the last shop I ever work in. In another 40 years in this shop, you know, if I have to put another 10 or 15 grand into it right now to get it the way I want it, you know, you dollar cost that, average that out over the next 40 years, and it'll work out. So anyway, so that's what we're doing the ceiling. The walls, like I said, I decided to go with OSB. I really don't like drywall. You know, I mean, you hit it and it just, with my luck with drywall, I brush up against the stuff and I knock a big old hole in it. The OSB is a lot tougher than that, and so, and you can put a screw in it anywhere you want to hold a wrench or a tool or a part or something like that. And, you know, if you damage it, you know, you unscrew the thing, you pull it out, you slap another piece up there, and you call it good. So that's why I went with the OSB. Let's see. One thing I know that was not on the last video was the window for the swamp cooler. And that's this bad boy right here. Yep. So, you know, I had the, you know, the two slider windows, but my swamp cooler wasn't going to fit in those. You know, I cooled my old house with that swamp cooler. This new place has got air conditioning, which I guess I'm looking forward to that. I mean, my wife and I have never had a home that had air conditioning before, so I guess we'll probably get pretty spoiled. But, you know, I hated to leave that swamp cooler at the old place. And it's just a window mount, so I went ahead and found a window that would fit the swamp cooler, and my boy and I installed it the other day, and it looks pretty nice. Right now we've got Home Depot is starting to get some of their plants out. Yeah, you won't be able to, well, you might be able to see these little twigs right here. Those are Chicago hardy fig trees. I've got 2 more of them in the house, but these were there. They were looking lonely. They were $9.98 a piece. So, so they came home with me, and I transplanted them into Dickey's barbecue cups just for the moment. Anyway, so we got the milling machine, and the lathe is where it's going to be. We got the swamp cooler window. This right here was the spare bench that the milling machine was on in the old shop. The table saw is going to fit underneath it. I ended up picking that up to do, you know, to do this project, and I'm really excited because that's going to make cutting all the burl up nice and straight into nice clean blocks a whole lot easier. So anyway, so we got more shelves back there. Up there, I'm going to have to put up some of Vance and I's turkey fans, you know, like his first Tom turkey. That's got to go right back up where it's supposed to be. That thing right up there, I think, was some sort of a volcano project that he did in grade school too. You know, that kind of stuff. You have to have that kind of stuff in your shop. It's not a shop if you don't have your kid's first volcano project and his turkey fan in it. The normal, you know, the regular old workbench, it came back, and it's all nice and bolted to the wall and everything. This, I think I was trying to tell you all about it on that last video. And this is the Dremel tool thing. So let me get you back here where you can kind of see a little bit. So anyway, so you take a Dremel tool with a flex shaft, right? And you know, those are really handy. And put it on this. I mean, all this is a piece of round stock vented a 90 or a little bit less than a 90. And another piece of pipe welded to a bracket and screwed onto the center part of your bench. Okay, so now you can rotate this everywhere. All right, so you know, you still need a place to plug it in, of course, but if you want to work over here on the bench with your flex shaft, you can. If you've got a project you're working here in the, or excuse me, the vise, you can. Here in the middle of the bench, over here a little bit, you know, with the microscope, if I decide I want to do, there. You know, this is a stereoscope, so I know a lot of guys do like engraving with this. So if I want to do some real fine detail work, you know, I can get this flex shaft over here and work underneath the scope. That is a really, really handy thing to have. Is this flex shaft with the Dremel tool that rotates around the bench. Another thing that kind of came to mind when I was out here working and thinking about videos is your workbench. You know, your workbench is kind of the heart and soul of your whole shop, okay? So when you build a workbench, you know, I like mine higher because I like to stand while I work. I think it keeps me more active and, you know, I think a little bit better on my feet rather than sitting down. But build that bench just as heavy as you can afford or are able to make it. This one has got 2x4s that are glued and screwed together sideways from here all the way to the bench. 4x4 construction, real heavy drawers, and then just pack as much heavy crap as you can on the thing to make it solid. Then bolt or screw that thing to the studs of your wall. Okay, so that way when you grab a hold of that, I mean, I'm moving it pretty good here and it ain't going nowhere. Yeah, Wyatt, you want to try it too? And then build that thing I mean, build the thing steady enough, you know, so when you, I mean, you can just jump all over this thing and it ain't going nowhere, okay? If you build your workbench like that, it'll really pay off. So when you work on something in the vise, that vise don't move. I mean, there'll be a little bit of flex in the plate, you know, because I've got mine sitting on a 1/2-inch steel plate that's bolted to the top of the workbench. Or when you're hand sanding on your hand sanding fixture, the only thing that should be moving is your hands and your tools. You know, the bench and what you have fastened to the bench should not move. That's about the biggest tip I can do on benches. So then, let's see. We got the drill press all set up, the bathroom. So the bathroom, I didn't have lights in here last time we shot a video. So here it is. I think I'm probably going to take this door and swap it around to where it opens out this way. I didn't want to do that to start with, but the size of the bathroom, I think I'm just going to have to do that. So now, and this isn't plumbed yet. We have to wait till the ground thaws out. But what we have is we've got this bucket right here is full of water on a bench, and I got a can of Fast Orange back there. That bucket's just kind of signifying where the toilet's going to go. A refrigerator, right now I've got persimmons, nectarines, and some apple trees stratifying in there. We got a milk can heater with a thermostat set to where this room just stays above freezing. So right now we are at 37 degrees or so. So this is where, you know, since the shop is not, watch out, Wyatt. Since the shop is not heated all the time, I needed to put, you know, I mean, epoxy shouldn't be frozen, and neither should your dyes, your leather dyes, you know, your ferric chloride for etching blades, like the big tanks right over there. You know, there's just a whole bunch of stuff in a knife shop that should not freeze. So that's what this room is going to be. I mean, once I do get it plumbed in, you know, we'll have running water in here, so it shouldn't freeze because of that, but it also shouldn't freeze because, you know, this is where I'm going to store epoxy and stuff. Also probably put a workbench right here, and then that's going to be where, like, you know, epoxy up handles, and let the epoxy cure overnight in the, you know, you can just turn the heater up a little bit, and that way it stays at a nice warm temperature, and that way I'm not carrying stuff into the house and getting in trouble. We'll probably also start doing the wood stabilizing in there. So now this right here is the grinder setup. Now this part right here, I've got some pretty good ideas, I think, on how we're going to set up dust collection, okay, or at least dust control. You know, so my old shop was, it was a 2-car garage, right, that was attached to my home. When I bought that house, I was not a knife maker. I had made you know, I mean, I've been making knives since I was a kid, you know, I mean, where you take an old file and you grind it on a hard wheel grinder, and, you know, you might temper it in the kitchen oven, you know, just to draw some of the hardness out and stuff. But that old shop was where I became a knife maker, right? So a lot of stuff, and I think an awful lot of makers are like this. You don't know what you're getting into until you get into it. And so dust collection was wasn't ever really on my mind all that much. I mean, as you work, yeah, you get an awful lot of dust and you're like, man, this sucks, you know, there's dust all over the place. But there's work to do, you just, you know, kind of keep going through it. The old shop didn't have room for a dust collection system. And the neighbors were really, really close, so it wasn't like I could put like one and mount it outside, you know, and let it run there. And so pretty much I ground everything I could wet. That helped keep the dust down, and lived in my face mask. you know, and that's just kind of the way you do it. And the rest of the times you just suck it up and you keep working. This place, I'd kind of like to put together something, some sort of dust collection system. And I've still got more research to do, but what I'm noticing is that the guys that run a 3-wheel grinder typically like the regular dust collection system where you have, you know, a suction machine, you know, like a big vacuum cleaner, right? And it's got a hose that will come up and it'll, you know, come up underneath the wheel. It'll come up underneath the wheel right here, and then as you're grinding, all that dust and stuff goes into that suction port, and then it gets sucked through the tubes, and then it goes back to, you know, a bag or, you know, some sort of container. So for the 3-wheeled grinder guys, I can really see that helping out a lot. Well, I do probably 90% of my grinding work on a flat platen. You know, I do mostly flat grinds. I do some hollow grinds and some convex grinds, but the majority of my work is all flat grind. Now, when you're flat grinding a knife, this isn't a knife, it's just a piece of metal, but, you know, I mean, I'm working up in here. I'm working up in here. So now that dust has got to go all the way down here to be able to get collected. I'm not sure if that makes that big of a difference. But the thought that I had in my head was, instead of doing a collection system where, you know, you have like a suction port like that on each machine, which, you know, would involve quite a bit of plumbing, because this is a 3-wheel grinder with, you know, like I think I've got like 10 different wheels for it. So I'd have to make it to where it adjusted for each setup. One for the 4x36, so that it would get, you know, this part mostly, but then also in here. One for this one for that one, and so on. I'm kind of thinking about a whole room. And of course, I had a 2x4 sit here on the ground. And let's move this out of the way. So this might take a little bit of imagination, but see if you can follow with me. Let me pull you back some more. So I'm going to go ahead and build another 3-wheel grinder that's going to replace this. That'll be out here for like a detail type of deal. The detail grinding, I'm not really all that concerned with that amount of dust. I'm concerned with mostly, you know, you're hogging, you're, you know, grinding. Let's say you grind 10 chef's knives that day, you know, and then the next day you grind the handles on those 10 chef's knives. That's this part right here. That's the dust I'm worried about. With the windows and the doors, the detail grinding dust and the hand sanding, I'm not really all that concerned with that. But if I was to take and build a wall right here, all the way to the ceiling, and close that area there, then another wall from here to the ceiling. Put a regular entryway door in here that opens to the outside. So you open up the door, walk in, close the door behind you. Now, go ahead and in this wall right here, the box fans, you know, your 20-inch box fan that you get from Walmart, and the furnace filter. So the box fan and furnace filter setup, right? So if I was to frame in and put 4 of those box fans in the wall right here up at the top, pointed in, and then put 4 of those box fans in the bottom with filters pointed out. You walk in the door, hit the light switch, you'll have, well, these will be on, you know, pull cords like that, right? But then you hit a light switch and those 8 fans start going. 4 fans pushing in, 4 fans pushing out, filters on the bottom. In my head, what's going to happen with that is, with that amount of air pressure, because remember, the air going in, if it doesn't have filters on it, it's going to be higher pressure than those fans working against the filters pushing it out. I should have a swirling effect. The air comes in, comes down, and then pushes out the bottom. Since I'm taller, my face is higher than whatever it is I'm grinding, my face should be in fairly fresh air. And then most stuff should get pushed to the floor by the air pressure, and then that air ought to get cleaned by the filters as it exits the room. In my head, I think it's going to work pretty good. And honestly, I don't think I'm going to be out very much, because I think those fans are about $20 a piece. So that's 8 fans, so that's $160 in fans, right? Now, those fans, you can never have enough of those fans. I've probably got 3 or 4 of them rolling around here, and you're always using them for something or other. If it doesn't work, then I've already got the room framed in and walled in and everything. Then I'll go ahead and mount one of those, an actual air filtration system, and run the ductwork. But this system, I think it'll probably work pretty good. And there's only one way to find out, right? And that's to build the dang thing. So anyway, so that's what I'm thinking about for the dust collection. We do have the forage tree and the vertical quench tank, propane tanks. I moved the power hammer over. That's pretty much where it's going to sit. I haven't mounted it to the floor or anything like that yet. And I've still got, excuse me, all that insulation today. I've still got these 4 wall sections to insulate and put the OSB on, and then the rest of the ceiling to do, and then the little spots like between the garage door opener or garage doors and behind the electrical panel. And then I've got to decide what we're going to do for attic storage type stuff. What kind of access panels to put in the top. To be able to get the kayaks in or out, or I might put the kayaks on like a pulley type system, to where they don't go up in there. And we still have a she shed and a chicken coop and all that kind of stuff outside to build. So the kayaks could always go out there also, and that's where that big old riding lawnmower is going to go. And so we've still got at least a good summer or 2 worth of work before everything gets, before I can really truly call us settled into the new place. But it is coming along, and I'm really excited. Tomorrow I'm hoping to get the lights up here wired so that I can get rid of all these extra cords, and then get the remainder of this half of the ceiling done. Because we got some cold weather coming in on Monday and Tuesday. I think it's going to be highs in the teens, something like that. So if I get those panels done, well, then we'll really get to see how well the wood stove works out with the new ceiling, at least on this half of the shop. The heat will still go that way and go up and out, but at least we should keep more of it in here. So anyway, so it is coming along. Honestly, I think I've pretty much given up on timelines and when I'm going to be able to actually start making knives again, which means that maybe I'm getting close to getting it done, because as soon as we get all this done, then we can actually start unpacking boxes and getting the shelves finished out or filled up and everything. So anyway, so that's the update. That's where the shop is at right now. In a way, I'm like, man, this is just taking forever. But in another way, when I put this ceiling up today, and I kind of stepped back and I looked at it, and then I, turned the lights on, and I thought, man, that's actually looking pretty dang nice, and that's, that's not a throw together styrofoam ceiling either. I mean, that's a really nice ceiling and really nice walls and everything, and really good insulation values. And so, in a way, I'm like, man, I just can't get it done fast enough and get it over with so I can get back to making knives. And on the other hand, I'm like, this is going to be pretty dang great by the time it's all done, with the wood stove and the insulation and staying warm while I'm working. So that's where we're at. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. I hope you all enjoyed the video, and I hope the next update will be pretty much finished, but we'll find out. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.